Slide. So we want to just introduce kind of the project team so you know who's here today, this evening. So from Montgomery County Department of Transportation, we have Joanna Conklin, who is on our BRT team and she's waving, and Corey Pitts, who is not waving but is also with us tonight. And they are part of our core team working on the overall BRT program for the county. And we have a consultant team that is helping us with this initiative, with the planning work. Kimberly Horn is our consultant team, and we have Melissa, who you'll hear from, Melissa Dumond, Lucas Muller, and Kate Wideless, who are with us here tonight and have been helping us with all of the work to get here tonight. I also want to recognize Matt Higgins, who is attending tonight's meeting on behalf of Council Member Friedson, who is not able to be here but wanted to participate, and we're glad to have him here tonight. So thank you for being here. Okay, we're going to just quickly an overview of our agenda tonight. This is our first meeting, and so we're going to spend a little bit more time on background and kind of some of the more general work. And as we get deeper in, there's going to be a lot more technical and lots of meaty decisions and information that we're going to want you to weigh in on. But for tonight, we're going to give you a little bit of an overview of the project and how we got here. We're going to talk about the development of goals and objectives for the project, which are critical to make sure that as we go through this process that we're always referring back to the goals and objectives and making sure that the decisions that we're making are consistent with those. We're going to give you a little bit of insight into the baseline conditions, and that's with any of our planning studies, we always want to have a really good understanding of what's out there today, what's planned, what's in development, because that's going to be the basis of our analysis that we build upon. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps in our upcoming engagement and future initiatives. So the first thing we really want to do is see who's in the room. And so I know that we have, this is a corridor advisory committee, and a little bit later we'll talk in a little bit more detail about what the expectations are and why they were set up, and a little bit more about what you can expect as we go through this process. So what we'll do is invite the members of the CAC, those of you who are just joining us, everybody who applied was asked to answer a few questions in their application to tell us a little bit about why they're interested in being on the CAC and this project in particular, and what some of the priorities or things that are important to you as we're thinking about this work and improving transit in our corridor. So here's where we're going to see who are the hand raisers and who are not, but which is fine. We'll give everybody a chance. So if we can have maybe the best, I don't want to call on people. I don't want people to be uncomfortable. So we'll give you just a minute to kind of look at these questions and kind of think about how you want to respond, and we'll go through the members of the CAC. I will share that after the meeting on the website, all of the materials from tonight will be shared, and we are recording. Thank you, whoever remembered to do that, because I did not. And all of the meeting materials will be up there, including a list of all of the participants. We know that since we're not meeting in person, it's a little bit harder to kind of get to know your peers on the committee. And we do think it's important to have good conversation between the different members of the group to really advance the project. So I will, if we have volunteers, we'll start with that. And then I'll just make sure that we have all of our committee members have a chance to introduce themselves. So maybe if you are ready, if you are willing to go, we'll ask that you turn your camera on so that you can introduce yourself and people can see who you are. If your camera's off, we'll know that you need maybe another minute or two. So, all right, I'm going to call on Mac only because you just put your camera on, so that was an indicator to me. So we'll let you go first.
Hi, everybody. Matt Campbell. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Strathmore. I'm interested in this project, obviously, because one of the potential locations would be adjacent to us at the Strathmore Grosvenor Metro Station. And we see this as an ability to get folks with different socioeconomic backgrounds to Strathmore instead of only being the way to reach them is by going to them, and think that we can offer a wider variety of programs if we were to have a bigger transportation hub next to us. So that's it. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. So I'm going to work on the assumption if your camera's on, you're willing to speak. So I'll call on Michael. Can we ask you to introduce yourself? I'm not hearing you. You're not on mute, but I don't hear you. All right, so you sort that out. We'll come back to you.
Can you hear me now, Sandra?
Great. Yep, we hear you.
How to switch microphones. My name is Michael Krauthammer. I'm a longtime resident of the White Flint community. I'm also representing the White Flint Downtown Advisory Committee, which is an organization whose members include a number of businesses, landowners, and residents in the community. So I'm sort of wearing two hats. But our shared goals for the region are to have improved walkability, sustainability, easy to get from one place to another, economic vibrance and vitality, and also placemaking. And to the extent BRT can help achieve those goals, that is what we're looking for. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Stephen, can we ask you to introduce yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Steve Robbins. It's nice to be here. I'm with the law firm of Gertler and Brewer, and I'm very pleased to be on the CAC. I applied. I'm a land use attorney, and I've worked on a number of projects in the Rock Spring area, including Rock Spring Center, and also the EYA project that was developed, the townhouse community. And I'm also intimately familiar with other properties in Rock Spring. I'm very interested in the transit way, and particularly the North Bethesda BRT link, because of its impact on Rock Spring and how that can provide connectivity to other areas of the county, including White Flint, North Bethesda, 355 and beyond. So one of the focuses I have is not only how this works for Rock Spring, but also how it connects to other areas of North Bethesda and the county. And I know that the BRT has sort of been the mode of transportation that has been landed on in terms of providing a realistic opportunity to provide transit service in a somewhat cost-effective, but also a timely way. So I'm looking forward to participating in the CAC. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I will go to our other Stephen, and you'll tell me if you go by a different name. I'm just going by your name on my list. So Stephen Miller.
That's me. Yes, hi, my name is Steve Miller. I've been a resident of this area since, this immediate area since 1980 in Windermere, and now over at the Fallswood. And when I see BRT, I think of the express buses and the express routes that you were trying to develop in other areas of the county. And I'd just like to get more clarification of what we're talking about here relative to transportation, if it's really a circulator system that you're talking about, or a BRT, because from a few people that have just said something, it doesn't sound like it's the BRT as I thought it was, but it sounds like just be able to set up some system to be able to get people from A to B if that's what they want to do.
Okay, great. Well, and we'll definitely make sure that we clarify and go over kind of some of the goals and what we expect, what we can all collectively expect from the project. I know there were some people who joined a little bit late. I'll just, we're asking members of the CAC to think about the questions on the screen, and when you're ready, if you can put your camera on, then I'll know that you're willing to go. So we will call on you as we work our way down the list. So Susanna Parker.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Susanna Parker. I work for Bethesda Urban Partnership, but I am here as a representative for the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce. I'm the Vice President of Information and Special Events. I'm interested because I have a background in transportation. I worked for Bethesda Transportation Solutions as the employer outreach representative, so working to get people out of cars and into other modes of transportation. So very interested in bus rapid transit. I also live in the area. I'm a little further east, but pretty close to the affected area, and so definitely want to see more east-west transit solutions. And so top priorities, I think, are just, getting a good arrangement of stops and good headways and having this be the most effective bus rapid transit system for the area that we can get.
Great, thank you. Clark. I think you are on mute.
Sorry about that. I'm Clark Mayer. I represent 2 commercial property owners totaling 800,000 square feet with both private government tenants as well as a daycare in the Rock Springs Park area. I'm also part of an association that includes the 168 townhome owners behind Rock Springs Park. What interested me in this project is what the previous speaker mentioned, just looking to see what routes are going to be proposed and or ultimately decided upon, and how that can best assist my tenants and my association members. The top priority is just to contribute in any way I can and hopefully maximize the benefit. I like the concept of this BRT as a means of a point A to point B rapid transit as opposed to a longer term circular route. I have a lot of tenants who wish to, parents of kids in the daycare, et cetera, that wish to be able to utilize the metro system. And something like this, if the stops are in proximity to our buildings, would certainly be a benefit.
Great, thank you. Ron?
Yeah, my name is Ron Basamalik. I live in Bethesda. I'm really interested in this project because I'm passionate about different kinds of transportation that are not cars and making sure that they run as effectively and are designed as efficiently as possible. My main priorities for this are, making sure the stops are designed in a way that allow the maximum amount of people to access them in a safe, accessible manner, and that the bus really gets as much dedicated lane space as possible so that it's running on time with as small headways as possible. So that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Natalie, I hope I'm saying that right. Is that, yep, okay.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Natalie McCaskill. I am a resident of the Wickford neighborhood, which is next to Georgetown Prep. I am the vice president of our HOA, so I'm here as a resident and in that capacity. What interested me in this project is that our neighborhood, if you're familiar, has one way in and one way out, which we're comfortable with, and that's through Gulf Lane. We are limited, we're very close to White Flint and Grosvenor Metro, but we are limited when it comes to bus access and getting somewhere quickly from where we are. Very close to Pike and Rose, but it's on most nights much faster for me to walk there. And so interested in this and how it can be an added value to our neighborhood without impacting our walkability on Rockville Pike in the sidewalks. So I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. Silvana?
Yes, good evening. I'm Silvana, and I'm a resident of Locks Manor, and I'm here representing the LCA, which is our community association. I'm interested in this project. Obviously, we're within very close proximity to one of the proposed routes, and we want to make sure that we have sort of full knowledge of the process, the decision making, and the factors that will be considered to in making the decision, and which of the 2 routes are selected. And of course, the stops, depending on which way it goes.
Great, thank you. Glad to have you. Tim?
Hi there, everybody. My name is Tim. I'm a lawyer and practicing, I guess, for 25 years in downtown Rockville by the courthouse. I'm on the Western Montgomery County Citizens Advisory Board, and as a member of that board, I'm sitting on this board to see what's going on.
Thank you for being here. I don't see any other members with their cameras on, but I see that there are other members. So I'm going to hope that it's okay if I call on you. Karen, can you introduce yourself to us?
Yes, hi. So I'm Karen Gertler, and I live in North Bethesda, and I signed up for this because I take transit all the time, mostly in Montgomery County and DC, occasionally to Virginia, which I believe is way out of scope for this project. And I'm just interested in how, I guess, prioritizing which routes are chosen to help people get from point A to point B.
Great. Puatan, I believe you're on, but I don't see your camera. So hopefully you can introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hua Tian. I live in the Twinbrook Metro stop area, and I use Metro. I and my family use Metro and bus service quite a bit in Rockville area, and I am very proud of that because I can tell people that I don't need a car if I don't want to in this area. For me, joining this committee is to be able to contribute in some way to the decision making and understand how decisions are made, and just continue to see Rockville being really walkable and attractive. So thanks.
Glad to have you. I'm sure I missed somebody. I think if you are on the committee and I didn't call you, please make yourself known. Robert, thank you.
You'll have to forgive me. It's bedtime over here, so we're putting the toddlers down.
That's why I'm not at home.
My name is Robert Smythe. I am a local resident off of Montrose Road. I've been in the area for a long time, about 15 years. I was a renter for about 10 years and a homeowner for a couple of years now. So I'm very excited to see this come to fruition. I also work in the transportation industry, and I've actually worked on the designs for several high-profile BRTs. So I'm looking forward to combining that expertise to help guide some of the corridor connectivity, activity and activization of the hubs, and see where this goes. Thank you.
Great, glad to have you. Did I miss anybody else on the committee? Okay, it's not too late if I did, and you can put it in the chat. We'll make sure that we get to meet you. I mentioned earlier, but I did want to just mention again that Councilmember Friedson is not able to be here, but is represented by his staff member Matt Higgins, and wanted to welcome him. I see that he has joined us since I welcomed him the first time. Okay, so I'm going to just briefly talk a little bit about the role of the committee, and then I'm going to hand it off to Melissa on our consultant team to really get into the project itself. I know that we've been doing a lot of introductions and housekeeping, and I know that people are probably eager to really just to dive in. So before we do that, I just want to, there were a few questions that I got over email, and I want to just make sure that we are all clear on the role that what we're asking of you on this committee. So this is really an important role. We see as staff members that without community input, we're missing that flavor and that color of the people who are really going to be most impacted by the project. And so it's critical that we have inclusive and diverse representation of citizens, associations, interest groups, property owners, businesses along the corridor. So we thank you all for applying and for giving up some of your time to help us with this project. These committees were council specifically directed staff to work with the community in this way, and so we're excited to be putting this group together. As opposed to some of the other boards and commissions in the county that you may be familiar with, this is an advisory committee, so we won't be formally voting on items, but we are looking for your consensus and input as we go through different topics and bring different issues to you. While we're not an official county board or commission, we do follow the Maryland Open Meetings Act. When I follow up with information, I'll make sure to include that link so that you can be familiar with that and understand what is required there. That means that we will give notice. All of our meetings are open to the public, etc. So I will share that. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. And just as we put this group together, one of the goals that the approach that we took is to make sure that we had as many voices representing different interests and groups around the table. We probably didn't get it perfect. There may be some additions to, as we go on over time. We do ask that that you honor this commitment and we understand there's always going to be conflicts, but we do ask that you do your best to attend the meetings. We anticipate, we'll talk a little bit more about the timeline of the project and when you can expect to weigh in, but we ask that you do your best to make sure you attend the meetings or let us know if there's a conflict, and we'll always make the materials will always be available after the meetings on our project website. So are there any questions on that, or maybe we can, we'll have plenty of time for questions, but we will share these slides with you again afterwards. So, and if there's anything that comes up at any time, you're always welcome to reach out to us. So I'm going to hand it over to Melissa from Kimley Horn to walk us through the rest of the next part of the presentation.
Great, thanks, Sandra. And the team is going to be monitoring to see if we've got any questions in the chat. So again, feel free to put your questions in there or raise your hand. And on that note, I'm actually going to ask you to show your hands. How many of you are familiar with bus rapid transit in Montgomery County? Okay, we've got some hands here. This is good. All right. So you might have seen the buses around. They've got the Flash logo on them. We call it bus rapid transit because it's got the extra bells and whistles that prioritize the bus movements through the roadway network so that you get to your destination faster and more efficiently. BRT routes themselves can have dedicated lanes, busways, traffic signal priority, off-board fare collection, elevated platforms, and enhanced stations. So these are all attributes of what bus rapid transit is. So the North Bethesda corridor was identified in the countywide transit corridor functional master plan. So it was proposed to connect the Montgomery Mall Transit Center with the Rock Spring Office Park and the Metro Rail Red Line originally. Since that time, the county's advanced BRT for Veers Mill Road, which you're probably familiar with, and MD 355, both of those are in preliminary engineering. And then along with North Bethesda, we've got the New Hampshire Avenue BRT, which is in the planning and alternatives analysis phase. And then US 29, which is in service. And I believe phase 2 is moving forward for that one. So the project termini from the master plan are something that we're studying as well. So again, beginning with the Westfield Montgomery Mall Transit Center, there are 2 possible termini at White Flint or Grosvenor Strathmore Metro Rail stations. And we're also going to consider alignment type on the roads and stop locations as part of the effort. So this is a broader sort of regional map. We wanted to show you this because it's sort of a small connector that we're working with, but in the broader regional context, it's an important regional transit connector here. So you can see this is the North Bethesda BRT is going to be a key connector between the Metro and then future transit into Virginia. You all may be familiar with I-270 to I-495 in the American Legion Bridge study. And I believe one of you at least mentioned that using transit to get into Virginia. So you were probably aware of that study as well. And in terms of the process here, so this is a high level project schedule with the key parts of the process identified. I'm going to go through this really quick. So after the data is collected, we start to begin to develop options for the route and the termini, the lane configuration or other changes to the road network, and then the station locations. We're going to look at all those options against current land uses and how each option would fare in terms of travel time, how easy it's going to be to connect you to other services or modes. And then we'll look at costs and property impacts as well. The culmination of the evaluation is kind of choosing among the options. So which alternative is best to move into implementation? We call that a preferred alternative. So while all these technical analyses are occurring, there's going to be engagement throughout the process. We're going to make regular updates to the web page. There'll be a project survey, stakeholder and public meetings. We'll have our regular CAC meetings throughout the process as well. Does anybody have any questions about the engagement process on the right-hand side of the screen or anything else that we've laid out here? And just as a note here, we are continually updating our contact lists and our stakeholder lists. So we've tried to capture, religious centers, schools, businesses, HOAs, local agencies, advocacy organizations. We tried to capture all of those in our contact list that we will keep continuously updated. So any questions on this material? I'll stop for just a second with that.
Yes. Are we going to be able to get a copy of everything you're showing us?
You will. We'll send it out to you. Sandra, you said and post it to the website, right? Yep, doing all of the things, Stephen. We'll send it to you and we'll post it to the website as well. All right. All right, I'll keep moving. So your role, Sandra mentioned earlier, more details about your role. So the purpose of these meetings really is to share information and really better understand the community perspective so that we can deliver really high quality service to the riders and reduce inconveniences and impacts as much as possible throughout the development of the project. We're going to come to you at key points in the study that we've listed here. These are kind of the key milestones. And so after today's initiation of this group, we're going to show you what we found in terms of baseline conditions in the study area. So it's that underlying data that Sandra was talking about that supports the overall study and the decisions that get made in the future. Who lives here, where they're going to and coming from. And from public engagement efforts that we're going to be doing this spring, we'll find out what service people are looking for and how we can best serve the public with this project. This summer, we're going to present the Termini Screening, so the two options for the East Termini for the project. And we'll get into a deeper dive, White Flint versus Grosvenor. As we get into the alternatives analysis, we'll talk about the route and how the lanes are configured, station locations and frequency of the service. We're going to come up with several different options. We're going to weigh them against each other. And we'll look forward to your perspectives on all of these things and how they might affect the community and what preferences you all have. And ultimately, we choose what we call a preferred alternative. And this is the option of all of the options, the one most likely to move forward for funding and implementation, and all the steps that happen before that, like environmental review and preliminary engineering and everything like that. And just as a note, we can talk more about this later, but we would like to meet this summer. So we'll probably be asking you about timeframes that are going to be acceptable to meet, since we know that summer can be difficult when everybody's going out of town. But we're in this new virtual world, so you may actually not be too concerned about it. So we'll talk more about that later. So let's get into goals and objectives really quick here. One of the first steps in this alternatives analysis is the development of goals and objectives for the North Bethesda BRT study. So Sandra sent you the draft goals and objectives, and we're going to talk about those today. So sometimes goals and objectives seem pretty abstract, so we wanted to put a finger point on it and talk about what we mean for each. The goal itself is a topic that is critical to the success of the project. Objectives are the statements that sort of describe what we want to achieve, and metrics are how we measure success. So if we take, for example, quality service as a goal, you want quality service. We want the experience of taking transit to be convenient and easy to use, like sort of like second nature for you, like riding the bus becomes very much second nature and very easy for you to do. And our objective statement is how we achieve that. So what are the attributes of an easy to use, easy service? You might describe it as fast, reliable, connected, gets me where I want to go without too many stops, or mode changes in between, which can kind of be an indicator of efficiency. So you can see where that goes. And metrics like travel time, potential ridership, mode share are ways that we measure this and then compare it against baseline conditions and compare it to the other alternatives. So having this framework, goals, objectives, metrics, allows us to assess whether each of the alternatives align with the intended outcomes. So this is.
Sorry, when you're done with that thought, there was just one question in the chat.
Oh, absolutely. Let's jump into that.
Yeah, there was just a question about what our build year is. When are we assuming? How far out into the future are we projecting in our planning? And will we be looking at a world without gas-powered cars?
Yeah, the future year.
So our study, when we're looking at the baseline, we kind of take what's out there today, what you go out there and look and see, then we layer on what is already planned or approved. So we know that there are some development proposals that are in the pipeline that we are assuming to be there. We know that there are some, bike and ped and transit improvements that we know will we should assume, if nothing else happens, will be there. And on top of that, we build out our different scenarios. And I forget our year, is it 2040? What are we looking at for our build here?
Yeah, it's 2040.
2040. So that's what we assume when we assume that the service will be running. And then when we do our analysis, we're seeing in 2040, if we have all of these facilities and this bus rapid transit, what does that do to all of the to the networks, to the roads, to the bikes, to the peds, to the transit, to all of those things? So that's how we look at that.
Okay, that's a great question. We have another question in the chat. How is this program better than an expanded ride-on service? And I think we're probably going to get into that a little bit more with some more context and further in the process. But I don't know, Sandra, did you want to address that at all earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to go hand in hand, and we're not looking at this in a vacuum. And you may be aware that there's a Ride-On Reimagined study, which is just kicking off, which is really looking holistically at the whole transit network for the county. And those are going to work really closely together. So those are things that we're going to look at in tandem as we go through this process.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, guys. And if another question pops in the chat, just stop me. All right, so what you see in front of you right now is what you received via email from Sandra, which were the draft goals and objectives. The process we took to get to these, we looked at other MCDOT transit corridor plans with goals and modernizing them based on alignment with current county initiatives like Thrive 2050. So we looked at what was done in the past, and we made a few modifications, and we kind of laid this out. And this is likely to be the goals and objectives that the BRT program moves forward with, just to give you a broader context there. So we're going to ask you a couple of questions on these now. So I'm going to stop on this for a second. Quality service, mobility choices, sustainable solutions, community equity, economic growth, and public safety. These are all the main goals. And underneath that is a subset is the objective. So under quality service, we talked about providing a fast, reliable, efficient, and connected transit service. Those are the objectives under those. So when you look at these, I'm going to ask you a question in a minute about how this aligns with your values, your community values, and what you're trying to achieve in your community. And to pick probably your top two or so. If I go to the next slide here, we're going to do a quick online poll. It's not hard. All you have to do is take your phone or any browser that you have open. You could use either. And you're going to type in pollev.com -AMP812, sorry, /AMP812, just to be clear. And it will pop up. And then you're going to select an answer to the question that I'm about to show you. And I'm just going a little slow to give everybody a chance to do that. So here we are with the goals and objectives again. We're looking for your take on the two goals that are most important from your perspective. And as I go, all right.
You're welcome to come off mute if you need technical support.
Yeah, let us know. Okay, so we see quality service and economic growth.
And I would encourage everyone is welcome to answer, not just members of the CAC. We know we have others on here and you're welcome to participate.
Please feel free. I'm going to let this populate for just a second. Okay. And as you're answering these, I'll ask a question too. Like, yeah, economic growth seems pretty high. And then we've got quality service, sustainable solutions coming in right after that. This makes a lot of sense. Thank you, guys. And, you know, are there specific measures that you're interested in? And what goal would they fall under? So if there anything else, you can raise your hand or just jump off mute and jump in here as this is populating.
With regards to quality, you know, making sure that we have accurate headways, that the projected arrival times and departure times all within a certain tolerance.
Thanks, Robert. Anyone else? Any other thoughts?
I think I mentioned this in my introduction, but just regarding mobility choices, having that east-west transit connection, connecting an area with such, like, it's seen so much growth, residential and business, like Rock Spring next to the mall, and connecting that with rapid transit like Metro, I think is just hugely important for the people that live there, the people that work there, people that want to go there to recreate.
Excellent. Thanks, Susanna.
In the context of mass transit, what distinguishes community equity from economic growth?
In the context of mass transit, economic growth, I think we're thinking of it in terms of the facility building on development and other activity, economic activity that's happening in the area. We're going to get into that a little bit in the slides, Tim. And community equity, I think we're thinking about it in a couple of different contexts, but also who's being served and are they being served and who are they and where do they live? And how can we make the service itself as equitable as possible?
Okay, I mean, in my mind, it's just like, can a person get to work? You know, which is economic growth and the equity issue. So if they're distinguishable, I'm kind of interested on that. Okay.
Yeah, I hear you.
Absolutely, and this is Lucas Muller. I would just add on to that too. There's absolutely ties in all of these, and I think when we get later on in the process to the metric development, you'll see likely alignment with multiple goals for each metrics. But I think that one of the pieces that falls specifically in that kind of that economic growth is that idea of fitting in with what are the targeted development areas that the county and the region has planned, and trying to be consistent with that and promote transit-oriented development.
Hey, it's Ron here. I think it should really optimize for maximum ridership, regardless of a lot of other variables. I think just getting as many people as possible to ride it is more important than maybe getting large coverage. Just increasing ridership to be the max that it can is the most important to me.
Excellent.
And I would agree with that because to me, public safety is a concern, especially in the evening. If I use buses, say between 7 and 9 when it's dark, I would be, if there are more people around using bus, I would feel safer.
Mm-hmm. And Melissa, there was a question. I think this might be a good time to ask it about or address it about. Is it possible to identify transit travel time for customers who are going from one point to another that currently require a transfer? For example, going to, from White Flint to Suburban Hospital requires a transfer. And the answer is yes, that is something that we're going to be able to look at when we do the ridership modeling, and also the kind of the transit travel shed calculations later in the process. Those are factored in that do have, they're basically using assumed schedules. So that factors in the connections from multiple trips. So that is able to be factored in there.
Yep, and another comment there, adding maximum usage, yeah. Ridership, okay, excellent. All right, well, thanks everybody. So I think we kind of landed on some top performers here: quality, service, mobility, choices, economic growth. Excellent, okay. Sorry, takes a second to switch slides there. All right, we're going to get into the study area context a little bit more now. So North Bethesda BRT is slated to directly connect to the Metro Rail Red Line and the planned Flash BRT service on the Rockville Pike MD 355. This is also an opportunity to connect other areas in North Bethesda to existing and planned transit in the region. And we've got, obviously, in the pink is the Metro Red Line. You see the Metro stations here. North Bethesda, 2 potential project termini with the dotted red, and then Westfield Montgomery Mall as the western terminus there. I'm going to go through a series of these context slides, and toward the end, we're going to open it up again, but I'd like you to think about whether this is consistent with your knowledge of the study area, or if you have any questions as well, jot them down or put them in the chat, and the team's going to be monitoring that as well. So here's the demographic information from US Census. The White Flint Metro Station Terminus and Western Terminus areas show the highest percentage of minority populations by census block group, with less diversity in single family subdivisions here. And then I'm going to show you a quick slide on master plans and pipeline development here. I'm going to point out a few key examples of development here. There are, clusters of pipeline development around each of the 3 BRT termini, especially near Westfield Montgomery Mall and White Flint. So numbers 3 and 4 down here, this is Rock Spring Park and Rock Spring Center. These are mixed use development slated to produce about 5,000 jobs. Number 7 and number 8 here in the mint green, that's Mid-Pike Plaza and North Bethesda Town Center, also mixed use development that will produce a combined 6,900 jobs. And then number 11 here, we've got ELP Bethesda at Rock Spring, which is the site of a future assisted living community, and it's slated for additional development to transform that existing office park there. All right. This is Transit-Oriented Populations Origin Index. So this shows where there's a prevalence of residents who are more likely to use transit. So the areas with high propensity have high concentrations of youth, seniors, low-income households, households with low car ownership, and persons with disabilities. And I'm going to go through a couple of these slides because I think they help tell a story of who's living and working and traveling through the study area. This is the Commuter Origin Index, which indicates where likely transit commuters live. So key data points in this index are concentration of residents in the labor force and above 16 years of age, and concentration of transit commuters based on American Community Survey data. So the areas with high propensity have high concentrations of residents who are part of the labor force and currently commute by transit or carpool. And this next one.
Can I ask a question? Sorry,
sure.
About the slide. Can you explain more of the methodology of how you decided who the likely transit users are?
Yeah, I can talk to that, Melissa. Yeah. So, do you want to talk about I think maybe go up one slide to the transit-oriented propensity.
There we go.
So certainly, as you might be alluding to, there is no perfect formula for what a transit rider is. What this does is it combines a series of demographic factors that have essentially historically been associated with transit use to essentially layer on multiple groups on top of each other to identify where there might be high concentration. So for example, if you only had a pocket of high density of low car ownership. That may not show up in an analysis, but when you layer on multiple factors on top of each other, it helps identify some of the likely, some of the areas that have higher propensity of those groups combined. So it is not, it is not a perfect formula. This is not a prediction of ridership, but it's a way to identify some areas that might have more traditionally, may have users that have more traditionally used transit.
Okay, yeah. I'm just wondering.
Can I ask a question about that too, Lucas?
Sure.
The graph that you have, or the map that you have on the screen right now, this is based on existing conditions, right?
That's correct.
So you're not taking into consideration projects that are proposed.
Correct.
That would likely, because like Rock Spring, while it's predominantly an office park, is proposed to convert itself from a suburban office park to significantly mixed use, lively activity center. But this doesn't reflect that. So this is just for existing, and same thing with White Flint. This only reflects existing conditions, right?
That's correct. This is certainly one of many pieces that would go into the overall analysis. Either, I believe it will be in the next meeting, but we'll show some of the forecasted growth at those areas, as well as areas like Rock Spring that have targeted growth and have a significant increase in density. So certainly we're not ignoring those areas, but yes, this is just based on existing census data of where people live and work.
Does this plan or sheet suggests that, for example, in areas like Rock Spring and really in Rock Spring, that even with all the office buildings there, you don't think there would be a desirability for transit for BRT usage?
This is only based on residents, correct?
Oh, if it's only based on residents, that's a different story.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Well,
So that's what this is. This doesn't take into consideration office users or commercial uses.
Yeah, so this one specifically is based on where the people live. If you go if you go to the next one, then this is again this is essentially where they're going. As you might expect, this is much higher. So
gotcha.
Yeah,
you just answered my question with the one that I didn't see. Okay, thanks.
No problem. It's a lot to digest, and I think Melissa mentioned, we're giving you a preview here, and then in our next meeting we're going to dive into even more detail and get into the weeds. While we are talking about this, so I just went back to our scope document and confirmed that the future year is actually 2045, not 2040. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Clark, you got your hand up.
Yeah, but this next slide helped address that. And I was wondering the same thing too, as far as the employment centers, because of the trying to encourage people to use Metro to go to and from work, I think is equally as important as focusing on residential users.
Yep. And Hua, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I on weekends, I use bus to travel from Twin Brook Metro Station to the Westfield Mall. And I often see people in the bus that look like they are going to work, not like people like me who use it for recreation or for shopping on weekends. I don't see a lot. So but that's limited weekend experience. So my observation on weekends is that the service is primarily serving people who need to get to work and may not have other options. So to me, the BRT design, if it can be very attractive to ordinary people who need to use bus can not take their car but use bus, that would be really a good change.
Absolutely.
great,
Yeah,
thank you.
that will definitely be one of the things we'll be looking at when we get into defining what the service hours and span and frequencies are.
Great, thank you, everybody. This is helpful. And feel free to, again, keep going, raise your hands as you have questions. I'm going to show you another one here. This shows the inflow and outflow of work trips to and from the study area. So it's sort of indicating there's almost 3 times the amount of people coming into the study area for work than those that are leaving the study area for work. Very few of the trips stay within the study area. So this is demonstrating the need for North Bethesda Transitway to connect to the other regional transit systems, since the map is showing that the majority of people who work in the study area are living elsewhere. So this is another interesting perspective here. And then building on this whole narrative here, here's another view on where study area residents are primarily commuting to other areas in Maryland. So like Bethesda and Rockville and Washington, D.C. as those primary dark colors, that's where they're commuting to from the study area. These are the people who live in the study area commuting to other locations. And then secondarily, Gaithersburg, Tysons, and Silver Spring, sort of the next lightest color. So this is all just sort of interesting data to help us understand what's happening. And now this is a COVID study area travel trend. So this particular piece of data from Replica shows end of January 2020 to the end of January 2022. So we've taken a little COVID snapshot here. And these are estimated travel trends for all trips in the study area. So trip volumes in the study area significantly dropped in March of 2020, as we all know, due to COVID-19. And then since then, they've returned to and slightly exceeded pre-COVID-19 trip volumes before slightly dropping in December and January, probably because of the Omicron variant, which we see. And the purple line is transit, which is not recovered back to its pre-COVID point in time, versus private auto, which is at one point exceeded pre-COVID points in time. So this is kind of interesting. And I'm going to ask you a question here. If you go to pollev.com again, go back to our handy polling mechanism. Before the pandemic, how did you travel to work? And for those of you who are not working, if you're retired or you don't commute to a job, how did you do most of your travel? Okay. Yeah. Okay, quite a bit. Metro Rail users, in addition to personal car. Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks, guys. This is interesting to dig into. Okay, so a few more details. This is a map showing pedestrian level of comfort in the study area.
Melissa, can I interject? There is a question in the chat that I think there might be a little bit of conversation, but do we know where we are going with biotech or White Flint property 25 years into the future might be a different world? And somebody said to piggy on back, the new development at Grosvenor of close to 2,000 residents with a good deal of MPDU will also have some mixed commercial use from what I understand.
Yeah, so in terms of specifics about individual development, that's something that will be documented in the existing conditions report that we'll get into. But again, this growth that's happening, certainly hard to predict. No one has the crystal ball, but it will be factored in terms of what's included in the approved developments and also the regional forecasts in terms of when we look at future year analyses for potential ridership and development connections. Certainly, this is That's one of the overall things I think we're seeing as we start to dive into the analysis of this area, is that this is one that's going to look a lot different than it does currently in 5, 10, 15, 20 and more years into the future. So
a lot of planned development, as we showed on one of those earlier slides, and you all have been talking about as well. All right, thank you for that, guys. So this map showing pedestrian level of comfort in the study area, the red lines are sort of undesirable, and then followed there by an orange line, uncomfortable, blue somewhat comfortable, and the darker blue very comfortable. So you see just the nature of the area. There is a lot of red, especially at some of the larger intersections. So it's poor near Westfield Montgomery Mall, all along out Old Georgetown Road and adjacent to the White Flint Metro Station. This is existing. So there's an opportunity, that tells us there's an opportunity to improve pedestrian levels of comfort and safety with a dedicated BRT lane, which creates a buffer between personal vehicle traffic and pedestrians. The existing sector plans also indicate there's an effort to improve pedestrian facilities in the corridor area. We know that to be true as well. So just like the development, we know there are ongoing efforts to provide higher quality pedestrian and bicycle facilities in the study area. So this is all culminating in what are these current characteristics, and what does that mean for our future BRT considerations? And I want you to think about this as well. Did we capture what you're seeing here? So transit ridership really hasn't recovered to pre-pandemic levels as compared to private auto use. More people commute into the study area to work than commute out. We've got some great opportunities to put upgraded bike and pedestrian facilities in the area where the BRT system would be. We do have high transit propensity around the metro stations, and we've got lower density and less transit supportive land uses just in general in the middle of the corridor, as opposed to the ends, the termini. So in terms of future BRT, we want to consider where we're stopping, the frequency of the service, definitely syncing up with regional transit connectivity. We want to consider what are the capacity needs and the users in the design itself. We've got an opportunity here. We've talked about this quite a bit, and you guys are messaging opportunity to achieve the visions of the master plans that are in existence and the developments that are being built up right now. We're talking about increased frequency and expanded hours of service to better serve you, including quality bike and ped facilities in the design, and future demand in terms of screening the termini options, which one has the most demand. So let me hop to another slide here with a question here. Was there anything in the data that surprised you? Or is there anything else you want to share about existing conditions to be true in the study area?
Yeah, I have a comment. Is there any reason that the Cabin John Regional Park is not proposed as a terminus? Because I think it would be really valuable to connect from White Flint to the park. It includes a lot of additional riders who could use the line for recreation. Like if you live in Pike and Rose and potentially just want to get to the park on a BRT. So I'm just wondering if there's any reason that it has to end at the mall and not just extend to the park.
Okay, that's a good piece of feedback, Ron. We will think about that as well. That's a good comment. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Karen had a comment in the chat. So I was surprised to see that the area near to White Flint Metro didn't have a high level of interest in taking transit. I think she might be about the transit
oriented
propensity. Yeah.
Well, that might be because it was residents. And one of the things on that map that is not misleading, but you need to note is that White Flint is kind of this black hole today, but we know that there's development proposed and that will change. But that, I think you're referring to the graphic that was looking at where the resident propensity is. And so that's probably why it looks that way near White Flint.
and the source of the pedestrian level of comfort map, Lucas?
So that was a previous county analysis. I'm not sure if there's anyone on that can speak to the specifics, but usually those are based on things like sidewalk width, condition, speed of
Jesse,
roadway, perhaps.
Jesse's on the call. Maybe do you want to jump in on that? Jesse's with our planning department.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hi, Jessie from the department. So the pedestrian level of comfort was developed as part of our pedestrian effort, similar to what was just being said. It includes the presence of a sidewalk, how wide that sidewalk is. If
So Jesse, I'm gonna cut. You're a little bit choppy, but I'm gonna channel Jesse. And just generally in agreement with Lucas, there's a general methodology to look at how fast is the traffic that's going next to the sidewalk, how much of a buffer there is, how wide the sidewalk is, and there's an index that takes all of these into account to kind of, give it, a level of service or kind of a grade, an A to F kind of thing with colors. And that just allows us to, if you might imagine on a neighborhood street that has a tree lawn and a nice sidewalk that's set back would be a much more comfortable place to walk than a narrow sidewalk without a buffer alongside, a high-speed road. So that's generally how we develop those. So those are developed.
Awesome. And Jesse sent us a link in the chat too. Thanks, Jesse. And Tim is asking, where does Virginia fit into this discussion? And that's why we've kind of focused on that broader regional map. Tim, we've got the I-495 American Legion Bridge study and the I-270 corridor forward study. These are all connected, and we're looking at all of these things as dynamic and trying to connect everything and make sure we're thinking about the broader regional context with all these projects together.
Yeah, and one of the major destinations that was or one of the major connection points that was identified in the American Legion Bridge study was the Montgomery Mall. So it would certainly tie in with service there as well.
It does.
Looks like Susanna might have a question.
Oh,
earlier.
Just regarding this slide, for anything about existing conditions, you have it marked on the map, so I assume you've taken this into account, but with the new Woodward High School coming, are you taking into account the high school students, both at Woodward and the existing WJ, that would be using the service for getting to school, but also like after school activities and getting home once their bus service has stopped?
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of feature of this study area that you don't always see along a BRT route. Actually, when we look to see what traffic counts were available from the past, the counts had been done from essentially like, I think it was like, I don't know, 2 to 5 p.m. or something like that because of those locations. So again, when we look at the kind of the operational span of service, typically you might think, okay, peak hours is 4 to 6 or 4 to 7, but with a school that might push it earlier, and so it might mean an expanded peak frequency. It might mean a more constant frequency for the service throughout the day. So definitely a factor to look at.
Excellent. Any other questions or hands up that I'm not seeing? These are good questions, guys, and good feedback. We really appreciate it.
Hey, Ron here again. Just one thing that maybe we can go over in future ones, but I would really be interested in which one of these 2 alternative routes could get the most use for other bus routes too, because I'm assuming it's going to be a dedicated lane, so we'd want to get as much use out of that as possible. So if there's other ride-on routes or metro bus routes or something like that, like which one of these would provide the most for all routes rather than just one? So something just to consider for the future.
And I just want to clarify that depending on which treatment we choose, whether it's a dedicated lane with intermediate or if it's just a striped red stripe dedicated for transit, we will depend on whether or not we would let other vehicles use it, because as you can imagine, when we think about bus rapid transit and the spacing of stations, they're further apart than some of the local service. And so if we have local buses that are using those dedicated lanes and stopping more frequently than what we're trying to do as a faster, more rapid service that doesn't work, and it slows down the BRT. So it will depend, but I mean, it's certainly something we're going to look at, and where we can maximize. If there are opportunities, we absolutely want to let transit use it, but there are some cases where we would deliberately not have local bus service use those lanes because it actually, you know, deters our frequent and rapid service and slows down our travel time. So we will definitely look at that, but I think that I just wanted to name that as another factor that will come into play as we look at that.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Sandra.
Okay, great. All right. So I just want to make another note here, a heads up on some upcoming engagement efforts. We're going to be, throughout the process, we're going to be keeping the project website up to date. So we've got a QR code here on the screen. We're going to use QR codes as much as possible. When you put your phone up to them, obviously they'll take you right to the site. But if you scan this QR code, it's to register you for project updates. So I encourage you to do that. And of course, it'll be in the PowerPoint when it comes out to you as well.
Do we have to do that if we are already signed up for this advisory committee? I'm assuming we'll already.
You're already on.
Okay.
I've taken the liberty of putting you on the list.
Excellent. All right, Sandra, I'm going to hand it back to you now.
Great, thank you, Melissa. There's a lot. I know that there's a lot of information and a lot of data, and we hope that you'll look at them more closely once we send them out and follow up if you have any questions or follow up or ideas that come up after tonight. We're happy to engage and answer questions as we go forward. I wanted to just go back to one thing that Melissa mentioned earlier. We want to make sure that we are casting as broad a net as possible. And as my husband would say, I went to high school with her. He makes that joke every time we say something that has a name in it, Annette. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're not missing out any civic groups, any you know, apartment buildings that maybe we don't have their contact information. If you have ideas of ways that we can get the word out more broadly, we would love for you to share that with us. One of the functions of the CAC is really to be a conduit between staff and the project team and the broader community. So if you are representing an association or some other larger group, and there's a listserv or a Facebook group or other ways to get information out, we really hope that you will share whatever information we're sharing with you more broadly, because that's really one of the best ways to get information out. But if you have specific groups that we may not have thought of, you know, definitely let us know so that we can engage them and reach out to them as well, because we want people to know about this project and be able to weigh in. So, and the best way to stay informed is to get on the mailing list. So if you're on the CAC, I've already put you on. And if you are a community member and want to stay engaged, we encourage you to make sure that you add your name so that you'll get updates about any events or meetings or surveys or things that are happening with the project. So the project webpage you have, and I'll send it, and we'll send all of this out again after the meeting. We are going to be launching a project survey, which is going to be live March 25th, I believe, but we will, again, if you're on the list, you'll get an email and a reminder, and we'll try to get the word out as broadly. And that's really one, we want to get as much participation, because it's really going to help us understand what some of the questions that we asked you. What are you looking for? What is important to you? But also, where are people trying to get to and from? It helps us understand what the needs are in the corridor. And we really want to try to get a broad swath of the public if possible. So, you know, we're going to be hosting a number of bus stop chats, which is basically we have a team that goes out at key locations. They'll be at the Termini, at the metros, and really trying to get the word out, as well as we'll be in a couple of pop-up events, and we will once we have that list finalized, we'll share that with you, because again, we would love for you to help spread the word about that. So we really look to you as kind of an extension of our outreach efforts to help us reach people that maybe we don't have access to. I believe that's all that we have tonight, but we are really appreciative of everybody's time. If there are any questions or you need more information or you had a thought, you can always reach out to me. And if it's something I can't answer, I will connect you or find out the answer and get back with you. Are there any, before we close for tonight, just another opportunity if people have final questions or thoughts that they want to share before we go? Okay. I really appreciate everybody's. There's a question about Spanish. Yes, we are going to be creating the information in both English and Spanish, and we will have bilingual opportunities. And I think I asked for this meeting, but in the future and with all of our meetings, if anybody needs specific accommodation, we also have additional translators if there are additional languages that need to be accommodated. So we definitely want to be able to, to reach and give everybody an opportunity to weigh in. So the survey will be online in both English and Spanish. Kate, is that right? Yep. So the survey itself will be in those two languages, but if you know of people who would like to participate and need additional language support, please let us know. We'll make that happen. Steve, you're not raising your hand? No, okay. All right. So
I just put something in the chat. Just Spanish made me think of, we might going forward want to use the live transcription that Zoom offers in case we have hard of hearing attendees.
Great. Yep. Great suggestion. Thank you. Okay, so I will say good night to everyone and thank you for your participation, and we will be in touch with all of the materials, and we look forward to continuing to engage with you on this project.
Hey, Sandra.
Yes.
Quick question. Are we going to have to like register for every meeting, or can we just get like a Zoom link and not bother with that system?
So that's been the county's, our department's kind of MO, because we had some issues with Zoom bombers and people showing up who didn't register. We try to make it, I know it's a little bit annoying, but hopefully it's, just one extra step. But I think internally we might have that conversation. We just, that's why we do that. It's kind of an extra layer to make sure that we're not getting this, random people showing up.
Okay.
So, and I'll try to send as many reminders to tell you that you have to register to get the link. So I apologize if it was an issue for anyone, but that's why. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.